Hey everyone, how's it going? This here is Tracilyn. I'm also known as VCAT. And I am down here on East Xenia Drive in Fairborn, Ohio. I wanted to make a video series of my time since I came here to Dayton. And we're gonna start off here at the bridge. Just off of 675 on the off-ramp that I first came down in the middle of the morning. It was actually late at night, into the wee hours of the morning, in February of 2009. I had explained in my life story, I had explained in my life story that a tragedy happened to me when I was in Connecticut. And I'll explain more about that after I leave this off-ramp to catch you up with that. But I want you to know that I wanted to catch some video footage of this because this was a life-changing moment for me. I was terrified. I came from George Washington Bridge where I was contemplating jumping off the bridge, but I was on the phone with somebody that invited me to come out here to stay in Ohio. I had nowhere else to go, no one else to turn to. I had poured my heart out to this person for just about maybe 8 months to a year. And on the day that happened to me in February of 2009, when I was at Wethersfield Motel 6, I was traumatized and I didn't know what to do. With that being said, I ended up speaking to a lot of different people for a day or two when I was bedridden in the hotel. And this is the person that invited me to come out here to Ohio. So I want you to know that the feelings that I had when coming across the interstate, I realized that I was getting farther and farther and distant from the life that I knew, which was, at that time, I was an adult entertainer, dominantly staying in the geographical area of the Central East Coast. So my whole life I was born and raised in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. I knew the East Coast in that general geographical area pretty well. And I was very comfortable with the lives that I had. The problem is, times were getting harder. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I wasn't educated properly. We're going to catch up on a lot of those details. But for now, know this, that when I was coming down here in the middle of the night, Tracilyn was very nervous. I didn't know what was going to happen. At this intersection, late at night, it is extremely dark. All you see is the actual, like the red light. And I did get the red light on my way down here. So once I got off the Interstate 70, and I realized that I'm getting further and further away from the life I knew, coming into the unknown, it was extremely dark. I was extremely nervous. I was on my cell phone. And when I came up here to the light, at that line, see this? Right here. Ta-da! This line, right there. I didn't know exactly which way I was supposed to go. The person that I was coming here to meet was actually sporadically and periodically talking to me on my way here. I would call them every once in a while and they would check in with me to make sure I was okay. Alright, so I'm going to walk down here to the bridge because this is the place. I ended up coming here to this stoplight on the off-ramp and I made a left. I was talking to him on the phone. I made a left and I came over here to this bridge. And I'll fill you in with that here in a second. Okay. Now here's a coincidence of something that I thought was very romantic. It was very heartfelt and very touching. That car is coming down right now. I asked the person I was speaking to on the phone, where are you? Which direction do I go now? So they were guiding me on the phone. He kept telling me along the way, just drive west and, check back with me. When I came down to the off-ramp, I was on the phone. It was late at night or early in the morning, meaning like about 1 o'clock. It was between probably, I'm assuming, between 11 at night and 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, somewhere in that area. That being said, it was very, very dark, and I was on the phone, and I asked him which direction I should go. And this is where we ended up meeting. They were under the bridge. Their car was parked here along the guardrail. I pulled in beside or behind them. They got out. I got out. They gave me a hug. They made a comment about being under the bridge. In other words, the good news is I did not jump off the bridge at the George Washington Bridge, but I actually made it here to Ohio, where I had a safe place to stay. Or so I was thinking when I came out here. I apologize for sounding the way I do. When you had the life that I did, and you have a lot of time that you're alone and a lot of things in your life are out of alignment because you were trusting Joel Osteen's version of Santa Claus God, and you start realizing that you're being surveillanced, or so it seems, continuously, it pisses you off because you really want to do something about it. And you're tired of being alone in this endeavor with everywhere you go, there's a cop right there in a lot of situations telling you can't do this or you can't do that. In this situation, I wasn't told I can't do it. But before I came out to Ohio, I was traumatized by two people that insisted that they were undercover police officers. And we're going to touch base with that in the near future. I don't want to talk about that now. I was hoping to have it be in a good mood and come out here and do this. I'm not thinking anymore because I'm living in my little apartment in Dayton, Ohio. I'm not thinking anymore of police brutality or harassment and stuff like that. But the first thing I see every time I step out to do something is a cop right there watching me. We're not going to let it deter our mood. This is where I met the person that I went through a lot of good times and not so good times since coming out here in February 2009. Instead of jumping off the bridge after being my room being ransacked at the Motel 6 in Wethersfield, Connecticut, or try to calm down. I don't like talking about that with what I just said, with the cops and everything. But you're gonna find out, even when I share this story, that almost every time I fucking do something, I'm either being told by an officer that I can't, not that they're not nice to me and stuff. It's not that they're not nice to me, or I feel totally threatened by them. It's just that they're either there either watching out for me or watching over me, monitoring me, surveillancing, or telling me I can't do something. And I gotta be honest, that has gotten old a long time ago. Ever since I came out, I've been dealing with this since 2007. And it's because I lost all access to having some kind of normalcy in my life that I once had because I got stuck in survival mode. How I ended up coming out here to Dayton, Ohio is I met the person that I ended up starting to live here with in 2009 in February that invited me out. I met them in 2008 at a You're Not Alone party, which was at an LGBT-friendly bar room in Columbus. And why I ended up coming here, now listen to this, the reason that I came up here is because I shared in my life story. I was on gay.com. I met a beautiful transgendered female by the name of, and I'm going to tell you, her name was Tiffany. And Tiffany told me, sweetheart, you're not gay. You're a girl. And she invited me to You're Not Alone. Well, that's the first time that I started using my name, Tracilyn. Only I didn't spell it the way I spell it now. I spelled it Tracey, and then I spelled it with a space, Lynnne. And the reason that was is because I needed a name quick so I could be a part of the community online. And I took the first girl that I ever dated in my life that really meant something to me, my teenage best friend. And then the last girl who also really meant a lot to me, and I made a username. Later on, I started doing a research in a baby name book. I explained this, I think, and I came up with what the meaning was, what the book meaning name of Tracilyn was. And once I put it together, I started realizing that this was really heartfelt and led in my spiritual journey as I was studying the Holy Bible and going to life groups and learning about my personal identity crisis is what I call it, which was a worldly self that was adapted with the information that was gathered and the demand of feeling that I had to fit in with everybody. Once I started to learn more about my own personal identity, that's when I started to heal and started to become happy. But here's the problem. I don't necessarily seem to be the social norm in my everyday life, the things that I enjoy, and therefore I draw to me all kinds of variances of things that sometimes I wouldn't appreciate, like feeling like I'm being monitored or feeling that I'm being surveillanced for some reason. I'm a law-abiding citizen, except for the fact that I will not submit to the dress code that Americans have been brainwashed to believe that they are supposed to live into. The costume that we're supposed to wear when we're outdoors. I will not submit to that. And I hope you don't either. Please don't. But have a support group, an emotional support group. And that's why I came out here. I didn't have anybody in my life. I had a handful of people, but I didn't have anybody in my life that I could actually turn to during this time that I could live with. I explained in my life story that in York, Pennsylvania, I did an out call, which is adult services I was providing at a hotel room that somebody else was responsible for taking care of the rental fee, if you will, for that night, meaning of the hotel room. They took care of the room rate, price, if you will, for that day. When I showed up, long story short, it's the place in York, Pennsylvania where officers of the law, it was an undercover, and I was suspicious to that, and I could go into details about how I knew it, but I won't do that at this time. I was suspicious of it, put the money into my hand before the actual officers, the other officers, arresting officers, came into the door. The money was already stuffed somewhere else, because I never volunteered to receive money in exchange to provide sex services. That's what they classify prostitution. I would not be that stupid, not that anybody else who done it is, but I was not that I never did that. And with that being said, I realized that day how corrupted the police officers can be and were to me, and I didn't have anybody there with me to testify on my behalf. With that being said, I had to take a guilty plea. When I took a guilty plea because I couldn't find an attorney to defend my honor, and I realized with all the police humiliation I was going through, form of harassment, these false charges being against me, I took a lawyer's advice after paying thousands of dollars, if you will, to just plead guilty for a first-time offense, which then I had probation and a fine. In his opinion, it was a slap on the wrist. In my opinion, I'm telling you, it caused a lot of serious pain in my brain. It was an inconvenience. It started a serious downward spiral of me losing everything at my apartment. I had to find a home for my dog, which was very challenging. I was going through a lot of hard times with my family and people I thought were my friends, not accepting this transitioning, if you will. It was me becoming the truth as to who I am, my own identity, really who I am. Not a worldly identity, but really Tracilyn. And I'm looking forward to explaining the details on that someday, and I have talked about it a little bit before. But let me tell you that when that happened, I had a really wonderful, and if she ever sees this video, a wonderful probation officer who I knew when I sat in her office, she had heart for me. I explained to her at the York County Police Station when I was there getting fingerprinted. Okay? Imagine how I felt, and I had to arrange this time to go there. This is about 45 minutes to an hour away from where I live in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. This inconvenienced me. I had to go there and show up at their appointments, or there was a letter of threat that I was going to be, arrested. So with that being said, for a crime I didn't commit, I showed up, and when I was there getting fingerprinted, there was a whole bunch of officers in a side door that kept showing up and opening the door, and they would laugh at me because they knew I was a transsexual. And this was in my beginning stages, so imagine how horrible I felt. And at that time, my gender marker on my driver's license was male. So there was a lack of what it appeared to be of compassion, respect, and education on my behalf of being a transsexual female, especially in the very early stages of what they consider coming out, taking the steps of transition. So I went through this humiliation process when I was at the police station, and nobody was defending me, not even the officer who was fingerprinting me. So I'm thinking to myself, how? Why would this be happening? What kind of officers make fun of a human being that I didn't even commit the crime, but I'm there, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm not causing any problems. Why are they opening up the door? And they were laughing really loud at me, and they took turns humiliating me like that. In my opinion, they should have lost their occupations for that. Okay? I never pressed to do anything because I had a lot of things that I was going through. I could not emotionally even take that with what happened that inflicted more pain into me. I explained this to the probation officer. I also explained to her the only way I could survive and that I was in the process of losing my house, my dog. I didn't have no friends. I had no connections, really, that I could turn to in order to take care of me. I wasn't aware of how to take care of myself in the time of need, that I can't get employment and stuff like that. So I was an adult entertainer. And I'm very proud to say that I did it. And I had a wonderful time a lot of times, but sometimes it was very scary. And this was one of those situations, knowing you're an innocent person, you're trying to do what you can to survive. You did no form of prostitution, but here you are, you're paying thousands of dollars, you're getting fingerprinted for a crime you didn't commit, and then the police on top of it are inflicting more pain by making fun of you with the peers within their office. It was a very challenging time, And if they ever see this, shame on you for ever doing that to me. And I'm not afraid to come there to York, Pennsylvania today to tell you that. Shame on you. Don't you ever mistreat a transsexual female like that again, please. That is the most childish act that I ever received from a police officer, was going in there to be fingerprinted and being laughed at because I'm a transsexual female. And in my opinion, I think that all the officers that were there that day should have been fired because of that, including the officer who pressed false charges on me. Now here's the thing. The person who was fingerprinting me didn't humiliate me. They just did their job, and you know, I appreciate that. So if you see this, know that I'm thankful. And so was the probation officer that I had. And what I'm getting at is she knew about this, and she took a deep breath. She didn't say nothing. She understood where I was at. With that being said, I explained to her I'm an adult entertainer and I need to travel in order to make a living, so I can pay my bills and I don't lose my house. Is there any kind of permission slip or a means that I can continue to keep doing that if I'm willing to tell her where I am at all times? What ended up happening is the answer was yes. They could not stop me from working, considering that was my occupation. Was not prostitute, it was adult entertainer, an escort. With that being said, I had to let her know on the addresses on the slip what hotels I was going to be staying at and when. I had to check in with her every once in a while on the phone. When I was in Wethersfield, the ironic thing is, that's where I had a fallout prayer. I knew it was time for me to get out of the adult entertainment industry. I snapped after I got a call from a client that was supposed to stop by within a brief time. I snapped. I threw down the Bible and I told God, it's time to get me out of this. I don't want to do this anymore. I really felt led that God was calling me into a one-of-a-kind rock and roll ministry. The problem is, it wasn't clear to me. What are the details? I didn't know what it looked like. But it's starting to become clear to me after all these years, more and more of what my heart's desires are. Okay, and I'm looking forward to sharing all of that with you in time. Now, here's the thing. When that happened, the very next client that showed up is the one that I don't want to explain the details. You have to go back a few videos when I was in Wethersfield, Connecticut. This guy ended up opening up the door, put me in handcuffs, put my head to the wall, interrogated me, ransacked my room, took all the things, ironically, that I needed, like my prescription medications and stuff, and anything to operate the business with. They took everything. We'll talk about that again coming up here soon, because I finally got my computer back, not just recently, you know, after all these years of me tormenting them. I finally got my computer back that was being held at Wethersfield Police Department for for evidence. Now, when that happened, they ended up having me go into the bathroom. When I was in the bathroom, getting dressed, getting changed over, he opened up the door and he said, "Now don't you commit suicide or anything, okay?" And it was like he knew information on me when he was talking to me. Eventually, there was no more knock at the door. He wasn't there. I was dressed. I said, "Okay, I'm ready." And I slowly opened up the bathroom door, and when I did, I noticed the hotel room door was wide open, and my stuff was missing. My purse was spread out all over the bed. They never took the money from me that I had in my purse that day, but they took my computer, they took literature that I had written, they took all my medications, they took things like my adult toys, anything to operate the business that I was doing, the adult entertainment business I was in. Now here's the thing, I called the detectives ended up coming over I didn't feel that they were really doing their job that day, and I'll explain. Don't get excited if the detective sees this. We're going to talk about how I actually felt that day in a few days. Right now, just know that these are emotions I was dealing with. After the cops left and I was going back and forth to the police department to share the story, I felt very strongly that they were not really on my behalf. They were pretending that they cared and took notes. That's how I felt that day. The detective knows about that because I talked to him several times since then, so I have good news to talk about with that in the days to come. Now here's the thing with this. I called my best friend, David from Pennsylvania at that time. I called different people. I was on the bed crying my eyes out. I didn't know what to do. And at that time I was talking to the person who's actually a person within the LGBT community that explaining to them what happened, and I cried to them. I had a nervous breakdown. So after 2 days, got things wrapped up there, and I ended up getting ready to head home back to Pennsylvania, but I didn't know what to do. Do I buy another computer? Because I didn't have mine. Do I buy another computer and go back onto the road traveling as an escort? Do I go back to Pennsylvania? Where can I go? I mean, this is how I make money, that I can pay the bills I have and take care of the home I have. And I was going through my transition. What is it that I could do? All these things were rushing through my head. And as I came up on the George Washington Bridge, the car got slower, slower, slower. This car right here. And I'm still driving today. And what ended up happening is eventually I got onto the middle of the George Washington Bridge. I gotta get my keys out. To the George Washington Bridge. And I was in my car, just like this, and I slowed down. I seen the bridge off to my right side, and I just cried and cried and cried, and I was on the phone with a person I called my daddy in the time to come. He became like a daddy figure, my spiritual father, who I love very much today. And I'm looking forward to explaining a little bit about that. But here's the thing. I was parked on the George Washington Bridge. I kept looking out. I was explaining to them. I was screaming and screaming that I really believed that I was strong enough to get through my transition. I really love people. I don't know why people won't love me the way I want to be loved. Meaning I want to be accepted for Tracilyn, who I am. I really believe that God had a calling on my life for a rock and roll ministry, and I wanted to give all of my life to that. I didn't want to be an adult entertainer anymore. I wanted family, friends. I wanted to be a worship leader. That's what I really wanted. I used to do music as a business, as a solo acoustic entertainer, and going to church and everything, my personal identity crisis that I was having started to reveal itself. And not only that, it also started to share with me my most deepest passion, which was music and God. And I wanted to be a worship leader and lead people into worship with a great God that I believed in. The problem is, I'm in a horrible situation. I don't know how I'm going to take care of myself. I don't know, maybe this God is not real that I believed in, and all of this stuff. I was going through all of this screaming and rambling on about this at the time. And what ended up happening is my door was kind of like cracked because I was contemplating jumping out of my car and hurry up and rushing in front of the car and jumping off the bridge. I knew if I was going to do that, I had to do it very fast. I could not take my time at something like that, because what I'm learning is there's a big part of me that wanted to live. I do want to live. I'm not suicidal anymore. I want to live a long, beautiful life. And I still want what I wanted then. I want somebody to love and channel my love into, preferably friends that I can learn to love and exercise my fruits of what I call the Spirit. Things like forgiveness, love. I want to exercise love into relationships of people that are meaningful to me. Now, with that being said, I felt that way then, but I was traumatized because I felt like now I'm not going to get my SRS. I never did get my SRS to this date. I'm not going to be able to get my SRS. So these are things I complained about on the bridge. I want to transition. I'll probably never get my SRS. I believe God's calling me into a rock and roll ministry. I don't know what that looks like. I didn't say worship leader, but I did say rock and roll ministry. When I was screaming and crying about what happened and that I had nobody to turn to and how scared I was and I was going to commit suicide, I begged the person on the phone, will you jump with me? Will you please jump with me? I didn't know, my mind was spinning, so I wasn't focusing very clearly, okay? There was nothing clear about what was going through my head at that time. I was just rambling on, and all this happened very quickly. I would say I was probably not on the bridge more than 20 minutes, and I looked out my window at some point, and this lady went by, and she's screaming, please don't do this. Like, I guess because there's a lot of people that have done that on that bridge, and she was trying to encourage me to keep the door closed, don't get out, and other people were blowing the horn, and I saw some pretty scary faces, like they were scared for me. So all this stuff's driving me even crazier, my head's spinning, I don't know what to do, the horns are blowing, cars are behind me, I'm on the phone screaming. Okay, this is probably approximately right after checkout at the hotel, which would have made it anywhere from 11 o'clock in the morning until 1:30 in the afternoon. Okay, so you figure the time it took for me to get to there. What ended up happening is he started praying for me. And let me tell you something, I love godly people. And I love people who don't back down from traditional beliefs when it comes to prayer and humbling themselves before God and loving Jesus Christ. I have it for people that really love and are passionate about Jesus Christ and God. And I'll tell you what, one thing I learned in the church community is when people lay their hands on you and pray, it's unbelievable the power that has into your life in a good way. It's a beautiful experience. I think sometimes it's even greater than just people giving you a hug or a kiss or intimacy in any other way, It's wonderful to fall into agreement with people who have a knowing inside of them that there's something much more greater than we can imagine. That loves us, by the way. Doesn't want to hurt us, loves us. With that being said, his prayer moved me very much that I ended up putting the car in drive. And I got off the bridge, and he said, call me as soon as you get off the bridge. Or he was on the phone with me as I got off the bridge, I'm sorry. As I got off the bridge, I pulled over to the side, and I told him I'm off the bridge now. He continued to talk to me, and he said, just drive west. In other words, we didn't know what to do about my situation. Just come out here. He's going through things. Just come out here because if I go anywhere else, he can't actually be there to help me. So I was really nervous about this, okay? And the long drive out, understand that it felt like to the left of me, which I guess in a sense was kind of behind me. I don't know, is it east, west, north, east, south from Pennsylvania? It felt like it was off to the left of me, but what I found out here recently when I put it into Google is about 450 miles, 460 miles from my doorstep of where I used to live. Not that far, and I traveled all over the United States. I've been to LA. Later years, I've been to Las Vegas. I've been down, everybody knows I've been down to Mexico once or twice. So I've been all over the United States. I've been down to Florida and stuff. But the truth of the matter is, I felt that in my heart, unknowing, I am leaving my old life that I knew, everything in Pennsylvania. My home was still there. I still had things in it. I was in the process of selling everything because I was losing momentum on keeping everything. I didn't have nobody to turn to. I didn't know where to store my stuff. And it's a very complicated thing that I would like to talk about sometime. Know this, that you're not alone in a situation where you're trying to hold on to your life and the things that you had, but you have to let go of things. And it usually started, well, it started for me by I couldn't find places to store the stuff. I can't expect other people to store it for me, right? You know, a friend or two to help out. So I had to sell my possessions. What I couldn't sell, I started giving away for free. Clothing and stuff, maybe to Goodwill or something like that. I'm big into that. If I have clothing, I like to give it to Goodwill. Or other, you know, if there's somebody else that would be interested in it, but in a lot of situations, if they're not, I give my better clothing to Goodwill and then, you know, trickle down to rags. I'll use them for rags for cleaning. And then I'll just simply throw things away, you know, or oil rags or something like that, you know, washing the floor. So here's the thing. So that's where I was at in life, and I still had some furniture and stuff. A lot of my stuff was finally gone, but I'm coming out here. It's getting darker. I had to stop a few times to go to the restroom. My daddy gave me a call every now and then to check in on me. Are you still coming? Are you still alive? And all the words that were said to me were very, very kind. In other words, it was kind of like he was fishing me in. I didn't have to kill myself. Let's just say that I was at that point because I really did not know what to do. And we got another cup. I am. I'm just getting ready to go. I was doing a video tutorial just on this intersection here. It's where I first came into Ohio. Okay.
Pretty much similar to the way I came to Ohio.
Is it really?
70 and got off this exit.
Yeah.
95.
Okay.
All right, just making sure you're all right.
I am. Thank you. Wasn't that nice? I don't know how to talk sometimes because I gotta be honest, I'm still suffering from PTSD and I'm still traumatized from those two situations and beyond. Listen to my life story. I didn't look at myself as somebody that the cops should be like. I didn't look at myself really as a law breaker. Maybe an outlaw as far as conforming to society and stuff like that, and the fact that I was an escort and everything. But the truth of the matter is, I used to respect very much officers, people in the fire station, ambulance crew and stuff like that, and people in uniform. I really, as a kid growing up, man, I really admired them. I wanted to be courageous and strong like the officers that used to come and speak at our school. So things kind of came about as they did. I'm really using up a lot of time here. We got 4 more minutes left. Know this. This is the place right here on 235. That's where the officer said he got his life started at the first time he came to Ohio. So this is a popular off-ramp at 235 and 675. I forget which actually the off-ramp number is. But down here, instead of jumping off the bridge, once I finally got out here, it was getting darker, and here's what I wanted to do. I got kind of sidetracked. It was getting darker and darker and darker, and all I had was this person's voice on the phone checking in on me once in a while. making sure I was okay. I'm still on my way. Get whatever I need. Make sure I enjoy the ride. Get myself a drink, food, or what have you. In other words, it was words of encouraging me to take care of myself and enjoy the drive over. Things got farther and farther away. I had a lot of things going through my head at the time. I cried a lot. I tried listening to the radio. I tried to stay strong and believe that maybe my life was going to become, at least I was safe for now. And when I came off this off-ramp, I was talking to them on the phone. It was dark out. The long drive over here, it seemed like forever. I forget how many hours it was for me to get here. Maybe I'll look it up then, or you can look it up. From the George Washington Bridge until close to Dayton, Ohio, which would be Fairborn, Ohio. 2:35 and 6:75. It seemed like it took a very long time. Is it almost 12 hours, 11 hours, 10 hours, something like that? It took a while. To me, at that time, after going through the tragedy I went through and being bedridden for 2 days, I was traumatized. With that being said, coming off the off-ramp was completely dark. There was no traffic whatsoever. I come down here to the end of the red light. I'm on the phone saying, "Where are you?" And they say, "Under the bridge." And I'm thinking to myself, how romantic is that? In other words, instead of jumping off the bridge, I drove off the bridge under to another bridge, just about, what was it, like 10 hours away, 11 hours away. And when I pulled over behind them, I got out, they gave me a big hug, and then I followed them over to the house I'm about ready to take you to right now. And know this, the drive over there felt like I was getting deeper and deeper and deeper and further away from the life that I knew. Which, in a sense, I'm realizing in many ways it's for the better. But for me at that time, I was scared. Plus, I felt like I had a lot of responsibility. I had my child to be responsible for, my home to be responsible for, my transition to be responsible for, any debt I had to be responsible for. I had responsibilities that I felt like I was kind of just leaving behind. Not on purpose. There's nothing else. I didn't know what to do. But know this, instead of jumping off the bridge in New York, New Jersey, I ended up coming here. 2:35, 6:75, and was greeted with a hug. And this is my car that has been through a lot. That I was driving at the time. All right, love you. I'm going to show some video footage here in a little bit of the drive over, and then we're going to show you the first house that I came to in Xenia, which was kind of ironic since I've been here. I have two names, and almost everywhere I lived had two names. We're going to Xenia, Beavercreek. It was right on the borderline. One of the homes I lived in that I consider my house is Huber Heights / Dayton. And somewhere along the lines, I followed suit with my life out here in Ohio to Tracilyn, also known as Beacon. We'll be back soon.